Great. So here we are on my usual Monday morning Facebook Live, or my live streaming to YouTube as well. And I have a very, very special guest here today with me, Peter Gustafson. You are, do I say your surname correct, Peter?
Yes, you do. It's pretty accurate, actually. So thank you.
Right. And I am really welcoming you on the virtual screen, but you are actually in Copenhagen, you said.
Yes.
And I'm just want to say to everybody that is going to join us that if you want to leave any comment, you must grant StreamYard permission to publish your name so that you can, or to use your name that you can leave a comment. So please be aware that you must give StreamYard permission for that to happen. So I'm welcoming everyone that is watching us today. I want to encourage you to leave some comments, to ask questions, because today Peter and I am going to have a very warm-hearted conversation about a journey that Peter has been on and his whole family has been on. Peter, I know that when you told me your story the first time, I was so touched by it that I thought I want to share this with the world. I have many requests from people, from families, because I work with families all over the world. And I have many requests from families. Please give us some guidance, give us some pointers, help us when there's a loved one in the family who's battling with cancer. How can we as a family be stronger? What can we do? What is ahead of us? I have had a brother who's been through cancer. I've had a mother who died of cancer. I've had a sister who fought cancer. So I'm very familiar with that as well. And I know that the impact it has on you as an individual and on the family members, it's a huge impact. So you have your son, Louis, that came into your life at the age of 4. And he was battling cancer for a long time. So can you just fill us in, tell us a bit of the story that we can just start with Louis and your journey? He came into your life at the age of 4.
Mm-hmm. Correct, yeah. Well, he came into my life when he was 4 because I met his mother, who became my wife, and my wife came with Louis, who was 4, and I came with my daughter, who was at that time 9 years old. And we created a little, what I call a modern family, where we each brought our backpack into the house, and we started living as a family. And Louis always lived with us. He, at that time, also spent a little bit of time with his father once in a while, but he never left living with us as a family. And after some years, we got a little daughter who was, let me see, she was like 10 years younger than Louis. And then everything went fine. Louis grew up. He became a young boy, and we just thought that he would go down the road just like the rest of us, hopefully, will do. But then when he turned 23, he was suddenly diagnosed with brain cancer. And that was, of course, a big shock to the family. And at that time, our youngest daughter was 14, and Amelia, the girl or the daughter I brought into the family, was at that time about 25 or 20, something like that. Yeah.
Sure. So that was a big shock to a family with young children, because then he was then actually the oldest child.
Yeah. Well, I would say that we, as any other family before Louis was diagnosed, had the same kind of way of living the family life. We talked about the future. We talked about upcoming vacations. We talked about the education. We talked about where we would like to see the family in 5 years or 10 years, maybe wanting to buy a house somewhere else in southern France or whatever it was. And we were kind of living the life that everybody else was living. And then suddenly, when Louis was diagnosed, everything changed from the one day to the next day. And I would say that if there's one thing cancer does, it steals the future. It steals the future of the family, because suddenly you stop talking about the future. Suddenly everything turns very short term. The next scan, the next meeting with the doctors, and you simply lose the ability and also the interest in talking about the future, because you know that the future is very, very uncertain.
So Peter, when we lose the future, it feels like this that you live then very just for the moment, just for the day.
Yeah.
How did you as a family manage to do that? Because you lose the future, you can't make plans. You can't say, where are we going to go on holiday at the end of the year? Or when are we going to move to a bigger or different house? What did that do to your family?
It really, first of all, it was a big shock. I mean, the time it takes to adapt to the shock or digest the shock and try to understand that this is a totally new fundamental situation for the family is something that is not done overnight. It's something that really takes time. You have to be able to talk a lot with each other. You have to be able to say words that you don't like to say, like this is something that will never change. We are in this on a permanent situation, and then slowly you try to find your way of handling the day, and it starts by very small things like, what are we going to eat for dinner? I mean, the dinner is very important if you live in now, because that's where the family gather. That's where the day is digested. That's where you sit and talk down. That's where we have to share all the good moments and so on. And then suddenly you also realize that you have stopped doing a lot of things that you normally would do, go out for dinner, go out to meet friends, and go to a bar, have a drink and something like that, because that's something that you don't do when you suddenly come into a really big crisis. So slowly you find your way to move things around and make yourself a new everyday life, but very contained. Yeah.
Very contained. So Peter, what was the biggest positive impact it had on your family?
I would say if you can find a positive in this negative situation, it is that you become very aware of how precious every day is. And every day is super precious when you know that there's a kept time. We didn't know for how long, but we knew that Louis was never going to be well again, and we also knew that it was a matter of not many years, but some years, if we were lucky. So every day is precious. Every day is important, and that is the biggest. What can you call it? Positive, because it was the only way to live, and it for me still is very, very important that we treasure every day we live, and sometimes we forget it.
So Peter, it sounds then almost as if time became more compressed. So there's not that unlimited time anymore. It's compressed in these moments that we still have. Mm-hmm. But Louis was a young man. And how did you, as a father, how did you get your strength to stand by him and also to be there for your family?
One of the things that became clear quite fast was that in a situation like this, every member of the family kind of gets his or her own role. So there was no doubt that mom was the caretaker of Louis, and she spent a lot of time taking care of Louis and a lot of time helping him with different things, and also helping the little sister, the youngest one, with school and talking about life, because she was at the age of 14 a young woman, and that is a difficult period in a young woman's life to suddenly have a situation where the mother is also super focused on taking care of the son. So my job was more or less being the practical person in the house, taking care of all the practical things, also being the lightning conductor, taking care of me, receiving a lot of frustration, irritation, anger from the other members of the family. Because I mean, when you are in a bad situation like this, no matter how much you try to control yourself, there are situations where you really have so much irritation or aggressiveness or anger that you have to get it out, and you can't get it out on the young ones, and so I was the only one taking that, you can say, because we both. Louis' mother and me, we did not work with bosses or employees or colleagues or anything like that. So we couldn't go to the boss and say, listen, you're an idiot or whatever you would like to say just to get your anger out. So we had to contain it inside the family. And besides that, every day I took a walk in the forest because we lived quite close to the forest, very close to the forest. So for maybe an hour every day, I was walking in the forest for myself, finding some strength and calmness.
So you found a way to help you to find your own strength and calmness, and nature is, of course, a wonderful way to do that. And this journey with Louis, from the moment of diagnosis to the time that he died, how long was that?
Almost 5 years. And
that's a long time.
Yeah, that's a very long time. And if there's one thing that's for sure, you really get exhausted. Really, really get exhausted, because every day you're just focusing on what can we do to help the person who has the illness. And it's kind of like you don't get your batteries recharged like you normally do in life. Find positive energy from going out with friends or your hobbies or whatever you do, and you are very, very tired. So it's just a matter of kind of surviving. But also there are some days that are good days, yeah, of course.
So Peter, it's an exhausting journey. There's a lot of emotions that it involves. You have to really it's stepping so out of your comfort zone and daily dealing with the loss that you're busy facing, the loss of a future, the loss of a normal family life, the loss of the health of your son. Yeah. What was the impact of that on the other children, your two girls?
Yeah, I would say that the impact was biggest on the youngest one, because she also lived in the house. The oldest one already lived for herself with her own kids, so she kind of lived away from the house. But the youngest one was influenced in such a way that she knew that it was very, very serious, and she knew that she could also see it. I mean, when a child can look upon mom and dad and see that mom and dad are very sad and that it's a very negative situation, that is kind of an influence on the kid that I think is something that they take with them during their life. So they are influenced. And Fanny was also influenced by having difficulties in school, that she was tired, she didn't have the energy, just like we had. But she couldn't just stay at home and take a walk in the forest, because she went to school, so she had to get up every morning and every day do her homework, and she did. And I think she came through it quite strong, but also a very difficult period for her.
So one thing I know about us as human beings is that when we face huge challenges, there's also the equal and opposite support. So what support and what forms of support did you as a family experience from other family members or friends or medical staff or community because challenge is the one side and support is the other side of the same coin. What support and what were the forms of support that you as a family experienced?
First of all, we got a lot of support from all families, all members of the whole family. Especially, I would say that one of my wife's sisters were very, very supportive, and also uh, uh, other friends were very supportive. We had a couple of friends where they are both doctors, and one of them actually a professor or a specialist in oncology, so he knew everything about what was Louis' illness and how we should treat it, and including advices of whether or not to try to seek treatment outside Denmark. That's one of the things that every cancer family experiences, is doubts about what is the best treatment. I mean, that doubt is very, very central, because you just know that this is very, very critical, and you don't want to be in a situation where you take a treatment that's not the best you can give your child. So making sure, finding out what is the best treatment for your child is sometimes so important that it actually takes away the attention from the child. And that's not good, because you have to feel confident in the treatment that you're getting, because if you don't feel confident in the treatment, then everything is uncertain. So we
Peter,
were very, very lucky with that.
I can imagine that there must be a lot of information coming in, and you will do lots of research. And to get to that place where you feel confident that you're making the right medical decision for your child, it must take a lot of research. But how do you get to that point where you say, right, this is, because remember, parents are listening here now who's facing challenges with their children, whether it's cancer or it's another challenge. How do we as a parent actually get to that place where we say, the decision that I've made to get help for my child, I trust this decision? How did you get to that decision? I know it's a difficult question, but that will help so many parents if you can give some light on that.
Well, first of all, you have to remember that Louis was 23 when he got ill, but he's still a kid in our view, right? He's our kid. He will always be that. So first of all, he was legal. He was a grown-up man, so he was able to decide. In the beginning, he was able to decide, I want to take this, I want to do this, I want to do it this way, and so on. But basically, he decided, and we supported that 100%, that if this doctor that is treating us, this hospital, it was the National Hospital in Denmark, if they say that this is the best cure, this is the best treatment, and this is the best way to do things, I believe them. I have to go with that. So he kind of decided from the beginning that he would trust the doctors at the National Hospital in Copenhagen. So no matter what they suggested, whether it was surgery or chemotherapy or radiation or whatever it was, he says, I'll go with that. If it was a younger child, let's say a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old child, I think it is a very, very important discussion between mom and dad to decide who do we trust and why do we trust them. And if you change your opinion during the process, I mean, there can be reasons, of course, for doing that, but it is a very, very uncomfortable situation to be in if you suddenly don't trust the people who are in charge of helping your kid.
Yeah, because I think, if you just think of the placebo effect, if you trust the process, that in itself is some form of healing. If you don't, if you start to doubt it, that can be very negative.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
So, Peter, you have said that your wife, or the Louis' mom, became obviously the nurturer and the caretaker of him and very involved with him. And you became the one that took care more of the practical side. That's also when a child goes through a big challenge, that can put a massive strain on a marriage.
Yeah, it did, and it you have to give priority to where it's most needed, right? And you only have a certain amount of energy. So of course, I mean, a cancer situation where the kid, one of your kids is seriously ill, and you're facing a situation where you might lose or you will lose this child, is something that is so important and so energy taking that it very often, I think at least, will make it very difficult to in a marriage to have an adult life between man and woman.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
So,
think you have to accept that.
so if you could give anyone listening now some form of guide advice, some just words of wisdom about their relationship, their marriage, what would you say? What would be a word of wisdom that you would like to share?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Louis actually said that he wanted us to live a normal life,
Mm,
um, and he tried everything he could to make us live a normal life. He was super good in that. And I think, honestly speaking, you have to force yourself to once in a while go on a vacation or a weekend trip, an extended weekend trip or something like that. Just mom and dad alone, and then find out how to recharge your batteries just a little bit. And remember that you're actually doing your kids a favor of doing that instead of not giving it the right priority. So I would say that spending time together and try to keep life as normal as possible, so including the marriage life, is a very important thing. And it's something that, I mean, if you don't talk about it, you forget about it because everybody's so focused on just taking care of the child that's ill. And the other thing, of course, is that you have to live every day. You have to really focus on making every day a wonderful day because you know that there is a capped number of days that you can use, and when it's too late, it is too late. It is irreversible. I mean, there's no chance for a second chance.
Peter, you say this now a couple of times, and I want us to really reinforce it. You're saying time is precious. Live
Absolutely.
every day as
Mhm.
if your day is your most precious day. So that has been an awareness that really sat with you. So after Louis passed, and when did he die? In which year?
He died just about 3 years ago, in
3 years
July
ago.
2017. Yes.
So in the last 3 years, how did that awareness that time is precious, how did that impact on your life?
It infected our life in such a way that, well, the first year, I will say, after Louis died, we had no energy. We were just exhausted, and we actually, our youngest started her last year in high school just 14 days after, or 3 weeks after Louis died. So uh, when my wife and I were trying to cope with the loss of Louis, our youngest had to go back to school and take her last year in high school, the graduating year, and she did that and did it very well. And that was the most important thing for in the first year after Louis died. But after that, we kind of realized slowly that we did not have more energy on the tank. We did not have more gas on the tank. And then we realized, or I realized, that at a certain point, you have to make a decision in life. Is this the way I want to live my life the rest of my life? Or is it not the way I want to live my life? And if every day is precious, why waste or misuse the last 20 years of your life on something that is never going to be well again? So we actually decided to get divorced about some time ago, and I think we both agreed that that's the best thing we could do, including our youngest. Fanny thinks it's the best thing we can do. Of course, it's hard. Of course, it takes time. But if you are in a situation where your life is at a point where it doesn't have the opportunity to become a very prosperous life in the certain situation you're in, I think you have to be facing yourself and look yourself in the mirror and say, is this the way I'm going to live my life? Yes or no? And then if it's yes, that's fantastic. And if it's no, it gives you an opportunity. So
give the opportunity to change it, yes. So
yeah.
Peter, it's it's my own brother that is just he's about 18 months younger than me now. He is just at the end of his chemo and going to go into radiation. And one thing that I have been so inspired by him, the journey that he's done with his wife and his two grown-up sons, is he had the very important conversation with them about if he should not make this. And because we're all going to die, but we don't prepare our families for the day we're not there anymore. And he had that conversation with them, sharing with them everything about his assets, what is going to happen, who is going to take care of it, what his expectations are. Now, I know Louis was only a young man, still in his 20s, but did you have any conversations with Louis at any stage before he passed about the end that he's busy facing? Were you having those difficult conversations?
No, not at all, because Louis never wanted to talk about his illness. He kept it for himself. Of course, my wife and I discussed the situation with each other, and at the end of the last period in Louis' life, we knew where we were going and we knew what was happening. But Louis never ever talked about his own illness, and every time somebody, including my wife and I, asked him about things, he kind of kept it short. He simply just was very calm. He didn't want to spend energy on talking about it. And we were told by this expert, or the professor or oncologist expert, he said it's a very typical young man reaction, that they don't want to talk about it. They just want to live like they've always lived, right? Whereas if it's women, they're probably, or young women, they're probably different. They want to talk more about it. At least that's what I think. But I would think that basically the good thing is to talk about it, including where are we, what should we do? Should we change things? Should we do new things, or whatever it is?
But you did the right thing to be respectful to what it was in the way that he wanted to not really talk about it. It is a difficult conversation to have, and I agree, if a person is willing to have that conversation, it's really important to have it, that you can have all those last conversations that's so important to still have. But I want to ask you, and this will be my last question to you, Peter, because I know we can talk forever about this, but there are two things I want to ask you. The one is, what did you learn from Louis? That's my first question. And the second question, if you could give a message, and I know we've spoken about it already, but if you could say something to a mom or a dad listening, and they are busy facing a big challenge that their child, their loved one, going through. So first of all, what did you learn from Louis? And secondly, if you could give golden nuggets, a waypoint, a direction, shine a light, apart from buy your time out, time is precious. what are the most important things for parents to do so that they can do this with more ease, if that's possible?
Mhm. I think the most important lesson that Louis taught me uh, is the way he handled it, the way he was so calm and so relaxed and still joyful and very interested in his siblings' life and so on. It was a very, very big lesson I learned that when I'm gonna die, I'm gonna make it something that's as easy as possible for my kids, my grandkids, and everybody around me, because that's the best gift I can give them. That make my own uh, uh, death as easy as possible and not as difficult as possible. He did a fantastic job in helping the rest of the family coping with his illness and his death. About golden nuggets, I will say that um, looking back, it is very, very good for both Louis' mother and me that we can say that we did everything we could to help Louis. We did everything we could to make the family cope with this situation because we gave it super high priority. So if you are a career person or a business person or are busy with a lot of things when your kid get ill, unfortunately get ill, give it priority and say, who cares about my career? Who cares about other things? Because you can't change it. You can't come back and say, I would have liked to do this another way.
So the three things that I hear you are saying that, and it stands out for me when we as parents face a challenge with our children, whether it's a health challenge, whether it is a challenge that they have in their relationships, whether it's a challenge that they have in their finding their way and finding their feet, because so many youngsters are battling to find their feet, whatever challenge your kids bring you. First of all, remember that time is precious. And when you forget that there's a future and you focus on today, and you become more present with today, it becomes less overwhelming. The second thing I hear that you are saying, that you learned from Louis, and what a beautiful lesson, make it as easy as possible. Make it as easy as possible for the family. It is a big challenge that you can give yourself, even if there's no challenge that your kids are bringing you. How can I make it as easy as possible for my loved ones with
Exactly.
what I choose to do? And then the third thing that I hear you are saying, especially when we face challenges that our loved ones bring us or our kids bring us, is do everything that you can and make it your super high priority.
Absolutely.
Because you can always go back again to picking up on the business, go and do your hobbies again, take that big, nice international travel, but make this your super high priority in the time that you still have.
Mhm.
So I take from this, Peter, something very precious for me as well today. Time is precious. And when we don't face those challenges, we become arrogant and complacent about time and think there's so much time still. There's still this whole future ahead of us. But it's so important to come to the place. And I know that when you and I spoke on email leading up to this interview, you said to me how you've started to really travel a lot, and you are giving yourself permission to do what you love and to follow what is of high interest and priority to you. So, am I correct if I can make the assumption that it sounds that you have gone through lots of pain, lots of challenges, big decisions, big changes in your life, because there was even the divorce, but that you have taken from that the golden nuggets of time is precious and live life to your fullest and make it as easy as possible for the others.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I am going to write that down and repeat that to myself over and over, because it's so easy to forget it.
It is. Yeah.
So easy. So, Peter, I am very, very honored that you allowed me to have this conversation with you. It's thank you so much for allowing us all to have a glimpse into your journey and for your wisdom that you've shared with us. I am really deeply grateful for you. And I know that many parents, many people listening to this will find some golden nuggets for themselves. I want to encourage you, if you listen to this, leave us a comment. If you have any question that you want to ask, I will make sure that Peter gets the question. Let us know what you got from this interview. What was the biggest contribution, the lesson? What is a takeaway that you want to take from this? And you want to say, I want to really focus on this and make my life easier as possible. I also want to encourage you to join my Facebook group, Families Extraordinary, because every Monday there's either a live broadcast, where I sometimes interview people like I did with Peter today, and other times I just teach something that I have picked up in the past week that is of high priority for people to know and learn more information about. I love you to join me on my Families Extraordinary Facebook group, because I love serving families. I love helping families to become extraordinary. And Peter, you have shown and shared with us, you took us on a journey with your extraordinary family. And I wish for you that you will find many more travels, many more moments of real deep inspiration, and that you will continue to impact on other people's lives in the way that you've done it today. Thank you so, so much.